What's going on, everybody? Jonathan Baylor back with another episode of the SANE Show, and a particularly special show for you today because we have one of my all-time favorite guests back on, not only because he is a gentleman to whom I owe much of my own career because I've learned so much from him and he's been so supportive, but to whom at this point now millions of people all around the world owe their improved health because he is doing stuff at a scale that is nothing short of world-changing. So, Dr. Mark Hyman, welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you. That's impressive. I feel good about myself now.
Well, Mark, you've been doing this for a while, and you've been doing it at a consistent level of quality that is really unmatched. So, I want to get straight to it. You've got your next book coming out. It has to do with what the heck do I eat? And the question I have for you, Mark, is, you've written so many books. You've been doing this for so long. What inspired you to write this particular book?
Well, it's really the question I get asked every day in my practice, in the media, from patients, consumers, friends, like, what the heck should I eat? Because we're so confused, right? One day eggs are bad, then they're good. One day butter's bad, then it's good. You shouldn't eat meat, you should eat meat. You should eat dairy, it's like, it makes everybody go, just give up and eat whatever the heck I want. The truth is that there's a lot that we know, and there's a lot of reasons we're confused. So I wanted to break through the confusion, simplify it, get people really clear on all the controversies and the myths, and break through all the clutter, and get away from all the dogmas and extreme diets, the paleo, the vegan, the this, the that, raw, vegetarian, low fat, high fat, low carb, high carb. Like, it's enough to make anybody go, just whatever, the heck with it, right? So the truth is that there is a lot of science that we know that we can draw from, plus my 40 years of studying nutrition and nutritional experience as a practitioner, using food as medicine for 30 years, seeing actually in real life what actually happens when you change people's diets. And I've been a vegetarian, I've been a vegan, I've gone paleo, I've tried everything in between. And I've come up with, what I think are the common sense principles of healthy eating and a guide to people. So this is not about nutrients. It's not about what about saturated fat or this or that. It's about food that we eat. If you're going to eat meat, what should you eat? What shouldn't you eat? If you're going to eat fish, what should you eat? What shouldn't you eat? Is dairy healthy or not? And if you're going to eat dairy, what should you eat or not? And what are the implications for your health, for the environment, for the social structures, for human rights even? We don't take these into consideration. So if you want to be an eater that's eating good for yourself, eating good for the planet, eating good for society, there's a way to do it. And that's really what I did. I broke down through all those myths. And I think, I've covered different topics before, like sugar addiction, fat, and so forth. They're very specific, but this is really a general eater's guide to what the heck I should eat.
In terms of that general guide, Mark, I think, for example, a lot of people are maybe familiar with the concept that vegetables are good for you, but that is probably the least sexy and least talked about dietary thing. While at the same time, I know you're familiar with the data that the average American eats like 0 servings of green leafy vegetables per day. So
could be.
Why is it that everything except the one thing that it does seem everyone agrees on is what the nutrition world wants to discuss?
It's true. That's a good question. The truth is, the government tells us to eat 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables. And first, shouldn't be fruits and vegetables. It should be vegetables and fruit. You don't want 9 servings of grapes. You want to eat a lot of vegetables. And the truth is that if we follow that advice, there'd only be enough fruits and vegetables for 2% of the population because of how little we grow, because we're growing commodity crops that the government supports. Vegetables are called specialty crops. They should be commodities. That's what we should be consuming as our basic diet. And it isn't sexy. People, want to talk about different topics, but the truth is that most of your diet should be plants. Like Michael Pollan said, eat food, mostly plants, not too much. It's good advice, still was then and is now. And I think that we have to understand how to actually incorporate this science into our diets. And that's what this book is about. And not all vegetables are the same. The number one vegetable in America is potatoes in the form of French fries. And the number 2 is tomatoes in the form of ketchup. So I wouldn't consider French fries and ketchup 1 and 2 vegetables. They're really dangerous for you in many ways because the ketchup has high fructose corn syrup and the French fries have acrylamide and is really toxic fat, and combine that with the starch, and it's a combustion engine for disease. So we really need to think about how to actually include vegetables on a regular basis. And that's what we should be eating, mostly vegetables, 75% of our plate. And that's pretty much what I do every night.
And Mark, what do you recommend in terms of the most bang for our buck? Because as you've had firsthand experience with this for literally decades, and you've gone deep into fat, you've gone deep into detoxification, you've gone deep into sugar. But if there were like the top 3 dietary changes that you would recommend the typical person who is not after maybe seeing, their 6-pack abs, but who's just after being able to live their life with energy and vitality and a body that enables them to do that, what would those 3 things be?
Can I make it 4?
You can.
So the first thing is, like we talked about, eat tons of veggies, at least, 8 cups of veggies a day of some sort or another, maybe more. The second is, don't eat flour, sugar, or if you do, think of them as recreational drugs. I mean, these are highly potent. Alcohol's okay. If you have 1 glass of wine, all right. If you have 3 bottles of wine, not so good. And so we're eating the average of 34 teaspoons of sugar a day for kids, 22 for adults. We're consuming 133 pounds of flour a year. These are toxic substances that are driving so much of our obesity epidemic. The next is eat good fats. Eat good fats, because we need fat for our metabolism, for our health. Avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oil, even saturated fats from good sources like coconut and grass-fed butter, those are fine. And the 4th one is a very simple rule that anybody could understand is, did God make this food or did man make this food, right? Or if you don't believe in God, it could be, did nature make it? Or like, nature did not make a Twinkie, right? God did not make a Twinkie. They made an avocado, an almond. Okay, I understand that's real food. So cut out anything that's not food. A lot of for example, we eat 3 pounds of food additives per person in America. These are compounded over a lifetime to harm us. I mean, would you have butylated hydroxytoluene in your cupboard that you would add to your vegetables during cooking? No, but that's in our food, and there are harmful effects on these. And I go through in the book what these are, what to avoid, how to find them, and how to eat the right foods.
And in terms of how to eat the right foods, that seems like, and I can imagine you see this in your practice every day. All right, conceptually, I got it. Vegetables, avoid processed sugars and starches, eat things found in nature, get the most of my calories from healthy fats rather than from those sugars and starches. But Mark, I'm so busy and it's so convenient to get those other things. And like you said, these crops are subsidized, so there's a cost issue. How do we get this into mainstream America every day, day in and day out?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think part of the reason people think it's difficult is because it's what the food industry wants us to believe. You deserve a break today. Leave the cooking to us, right? This is the message that we get from the food industry, that it's difficult, expensive, it's inconvenient to make your own food. Let us prepare food for you. And this is what has happened in America. We've literally had our kitchens hijacked along with our brain chemistry and metabolism. And that's led to this epidemic of obesity and chronic disease. So when you look at actually what you can eat, for example, today, I'm super busy. I probably had 10 meetings scheduled. I had, podcasts. I mean, like, it's a busy day. I woke up for breakfast. I actually had a bulletproof coffee, which took me about 3 minutes to make, which is essentially butter, MCT oil, and coffee. I've been in a blender, and that's my breakfast because it's got about 500 calories of fat, and it keeps me going all day. For lunch, super busy. I had to eat it between a couple of things. I took a can of wild salmon, and I mushed it up with some mayonnaise, and I ate it with flax crackers. That was my lunch. And dinner, and literally probably less than 2 minutes to make my lunch. And then for dinner, I'm going to make something really simple. I'll stir fry some veggies. I throw a sweet potato in the oven, let it cook while I'm doing other things. And then maybe a piece of fish or chicken or organic chicken or grass-fed beef that I put in a pan and quickly cook. Very simple, very easy, not difficult. And you can eat well for less. You look at the research. The research doesn't support the fact that cooking healthy is expensive. Yes, if you have a $70 grass-fed steak, okay. But, I worked with a poor family in South Carolina and Easley. They lived in trailer, food stamps and disability, $1,000 a month, family of 5. And everything they ate was from a processed factory. And it was terrible stuff they were eating. And I showed them how to cook one meal. And I gave them a little guide called Good Food on a Tight Budget from the Environmental Working Group, where I'm on the board. And they were able to lose 200 pounds in the first year. The son lost another bunch of weight. He's now down 128 pounds and is going to medical school. And they lived in one of the worst food deserts in America. And they had no money. And they were in disability and on food stamps. So if they can do it, it's possible. Now, there's all sorts of ways that I talk about in the book where you can actually learn how to get good food for less, guides on how to shop online, Drive Market, which gives foods 20 to 50% less, or community supported agriculture, or other ways of accessing cheaper ingredients that you can use to create healthy food.
Well, Mark, I gotta be, I don't want to cause any controversy here, brother, but you know, when you just listed out what you were eating today, I didn't hear any vegetables in breakfast or lunch. What's going on there? What's going on?
I was in a hurry. Okay. Normally I'll make a fat salad. So my normal lunch would be, and then my alternative breakfast, I was like just going today. So it's an unusual day, but normally breakfast is like a shake. So I put in nuts and seeds. I put in maybe some spinach, avocado. I put in some almond butter, coconut milk, blend it up. And it's a great, what I call a fat shake. Same thing I'll make for lunch, a fat salad. I'm lazy, right? So I'll get a pre-washed lettuce, arugula, and an iceberg, some cherry tomatoes. I don't have to cut them up. I'll throw in some pumpkin seeds. Maybe I'll chop up a piece of fennel, and I'll throw in a can of sardines or salmon on the top, lots of olive oil. So it's fat on fat on fat on fat. A very satisfying salad, tons of veggies. And the same thing for dinner. I'll put in 3 to 4 or more vegetables. I'll stir fry some broccolini. I'll make some roasted mushrooms or eggplant. I'll make a salad. I'll make half a sweet potato. Very, very rich in vegetables. So if you look at my plate, it's like literally 75% veggies.
And Mark, how do you, when you're, because you have the unique opportunity to not only try to communicate this message via podcasts and via summits and via mainstream media and via documentaries and via working over at the Cleveland Clinic. I mean, you're doing it from all avenues. How have you found, for example, you know, someone might be listening to this show, they might be doing something else, so they're only hearing bits and pieces of it, and they might take bits and pieces. For example, they might take their typical standard American diet and just eat a lot more fat on top of that standard American diet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like add fat, but you can't just add fat. Like,
yeah.
If I just take my existing diet and add 700 calories of butter to my morning coffee, is that healthy for me?
No. So here's the thing. Yes, eat fat, but there's something called sweet fat, which is deadly. Sweet fat is fat with carbs. So French fries, ice cream, potatoes with butter, bread and butter. If you have to choose, pick the butter, not the bread. So when you combine those two foods, starch and sugar, with fat, you end up with a disaster, because what happens is the carbs raise the insulin. Insulin is floating around. Insulin is the fat storage hormone. It's the fat fertilizer. So if you've got any food running around your blood, whether it's fat or sugar, it gets lodged right into the fat cells. So it's deadly. And so it's really important, if you're going to eat more fat, to really ratchet down dramatically on the starch and sugar.
I think that's such an important message, Mark, because it seems like maybe a lot of the cool thing about your new books is taking this holistic look at food. And two, it seems like sometimes individuals, it's like you get bits and pieces from all these different diet dogmas. And it only makes, like, if someone says, you know, eat more protein, but that's in the context of weight training, that's very different than just eat more protein. Or if someone says eat more fat in the context of a low carbohydrate diet, that's very different than just saying eat more fat. So how can we help people to understand that there's this sort of tapestry of changes that kind of need to happen at the same time, or you won't get the same effect if you just pick bits and pieces of all these different kinds of diets?
Exactly. No, that's right. I mean, you have to understand the context of what an overall healthy diet is and mix and match. And, you know, I sort of jokingly call this approach a pegan diet. Not that we need another diet, but it was kind of a joke. I was sitting on a panel with a friend of mine who's a vegan cardiologist. Another guy is a paleo doc. And they were arguing and fighting. And I'm like, hey, you guys, if you're vegan and you're paleo, you're vegan, you're paleo, I must be pegan. And I realized, you know, that actually when I went home and thought about it, there's a lot of things that make sense about there. It's not extreme. It includes lots of perspectives, but it's in each category. What should you eat, right? You know, a lot of the reasons vegans don't want to eat meat is because of how animals are treated or the damage to the environment. You know, that's real. Well, you can eat grass-fed meat in a way that actually restores the soil, restores our water reserves, actually creates meat that's healthier for you than feedlot meat. If you're going to eat grains, which grains you should eat? You know, should you be eating white flour? No. Should you be eating highly processed food that's full of grains like most Americans eat? No. Should you eat black rice and quinoa and buckwheat in small amounts? Sure, if you're not intolerant to those things. So it's really a very inclusive approach that says, oh, if you want to eat dairy, okay, well, I'm not a big fan of dairy, but what's the difference between cow dairy and goat dairy and sheep dairy? There's different forms of casein. There are different levels of inflammation that are produced in the body. How do you make sense of it all? What should you eat? And so there's really common sense approaches in each category. It's not like saying this food is bad and that food is bad. If it's not food, it's bad. But within the context of real food, there are a lot of options, and people can have flexible diets, and they have to find out what's right for them. And in the book, I talk about how do you personalize this. If you're type 2 diabetic, or you've got autoimmune disease or severe gut issues, maybe you don't want to eat a lot of grains and beans. But if you're an athlete and your body fat's 9% and you want to have some grains, not a problem, right?
Well, Mark, just to get really, really crisp on this, because I've had your name come up in a very positive context in a lot of speaking that I've done, and your last book, Eat Fat, Get Thin, was just a fantastic one. And I just, for the transcript, for all the Google search engines out there, I want to make sure that we get this really clearly. Can you please clarify the following position? Mark Hyman wrote a book called Eat Fat, Get Thin. Therefore, I'm going to take my existing diet and add more fat to it because that will cause me to lose weight. True or false?
False.
Okay, can you explain why?
Well, basically, when you eat fat in the context of starch and sugar, your insulin is elevated with the starch and sugar, and when that happens, whatever is in your bloodstream will get stored as fat. If you eat fat in the context of a low carbohydrate diet, you won't produce insulin. You can't store fat. And if you look at type 2 diabetics, type 1 diabetics, the way they present is they're losing weight, they're hungry all the time, they're starving essentially, and they're eating 10,000 calories a day, and they're losing weight. How could that be? If it's all calories in, calories out, it's not. It's hormonal. They're producing no insulin, so they can't store fat no matter what they eat. And they're eating carbs and sugar together. They just can't gain weight because there's no insulin. So when you eat fat in the context of a bad diet, you have a lot of insulin running around. That's deadly.
Gotcha. So it's not enough to say just add fat to my diet. It would be add healthy fats and replace what with what?
Get rid of starch and sugar. I mean, flour and sugar are the devil in the context of our traditional diets.
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't put 15 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, but one 20-ounce soda has 15 teaspoons of sugar, and the average kid has the equivalent of 2 or more of those a day. So that's the problem. It's not the 1 teaspoon of sugar that you add to your coffee. It's all the hidden sugars that are in everything. There's more, I mean, it's crazy. There's more sugar in a serving of Honey Nut Cheerios than there is in 3 Chips Ahoy cookies. Mm-hmm. Right? There's more sugar in your Prego tomato sauce than in 2 Oreo cookies in a serving. There's more sugar in your morning yogurt than there is in a can of soda. This is the problem. It's not that we are obviously consciously consuming sugar, but it's in everything: breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And Mark, how do we, especially for people who have young children, raising a family, who their children have already been exposed to this sweet saturation that's all around it, and there's been a habituation to a constant taste of sweet. So got it, vegetables, healthy fats, I understand. However, the palate of my children literally finds anything other than sugar disgusting.
Yeah.
What do I do?
It's true. We've let our children's taste buds and their brain chemistry be hijacked by the food industry. And, I was very conscious as a parent to insulate my kids as best I could from all of that. It's not that they didn't ever get a treat, but they didn't get these highly addictive substances. I mean, I met with the vice chair of Pepsi once, and he told me how excited he was that they created a lab in Westchester where they harvested taste buds, and they were able to actually maximize the stimulation of them to create addiction and pleasure, right? So this is a massive science. It's not like they're just sort of slapping together foods. They are intensively investigating these processed foods so that they create what we call the bliss point of food, which creates addictive responses in the brain. That's the problem. And so we have to kind of understand that we need to educate our kids. We need to demonstrate it for our kids what's good. We need to make our homes a safe zone. We need to cook real food. We need to have family dinners. We need to not have available in the house things that, listen, if I'm stressed and I had a bad day and I go home and there's a pint of Haagen-Dazs rum and raisin or vanilla chocolate almond or whatever Swiss almond in there, I'm going to eat that. I guarantee you I will not be able to resist it, and I will eat it. I just don't have it in the house. Now, if I go out and if I have to get in the car and drive 10 miles to go get an ice cream, probably not going to happen. So I think the key here is to understand how to create the structures and the rituals and the habits for your kids. And then, of course, as they go through, become a teenager, they're going to rebel and they're going to go through things. But if you've laid the foundation, they always come back. And I see this happening with my kids. They kind of rebelled a little against their dad and all this nonsense. But then they came back, and then they know how to cook. My son now, he went to college and he got hooked with this girlfriend who loved chubby guys, and she made him giant sheets of Cinnabons that she would buy at Walmart and cook in the oven for him. And he would gain like 100 pounds. And then after he got out, he learned about what we're doing. We went on vacation. We had a kind of a keto group that got together, and he lost 15 pounds in a week. And he was like, oh my God. And then he lost 100 pounds. And now he coaches people and is a chef and does meals for people. So, they'll come back to it.
That's awesome, Mark. Well, we've had lots of conversations in the past. I know we're going to have lots of conversations in the future, and I could talk to you for 4 hours right now because you are a font of knowledge, but I know you have like 15 different meetings going on right now. So to wrap up, tell us a little bit more about the new book, when it's coming out, where we can learn more about it, and all that fun stuff.
Well, Food, the book, What the Heck Should I Eat? Food, What the Heck Should I Eat is coming out February 27th. It's really, I think of all the books I've written, it's my favorite book because it provides a really comprehensive view of food, all the way from health perspectives to all the controversies to what we should eat, how to shop, what to pick, as well as some of the political issues, the social issues, environmental issues that we need to be conscious of when we're eating. And it's really a how-to guide for the eater. It's really simply used. You can pick up any chapter and, I want to know about meat, or what about dairy? I read this, or what about grains? I hear this or hear that. Where can you go for something that's common sense? And there's literally over 500 scientific references in there. There's lots more that I couldn't even put in because my publisher said the book was going to be too long. And it's really a great resource. So you can go check it out at foodthebook.com. That's foodthebook.com. And you can get free videos on there of me cooking, a whole video on all the top 4 myths that we have around food. You can download a free chapter of the book. And, of course, you can always get it on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and I think it's really a great gift for people. It's great for yourself. It's great to have in the bathroom. And it's don't use this toilet paper, though. And it's just great to take shopping with you. There's online resources. It's really a wealth of information, knowledge to help sort of solve this problem that everybody's having, which is confusion, being fed up, and giving up. And I want people to be empowered around their diet, empowered around food, and learn how to live a life that's fun and easy and rich and pleasurable.
Well, that's beautiful, Mark. And you're certainly doing that at a global scale, which I personally, and I know all of our viewers and listeners appreciate. So give us that URL one more time.
Foodthebook.com.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Mark Hyman, thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to be with us today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, viewers and listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this chat. Certainly not as long as I would have liked, but as you know, Dr. Mark Hyman is a busy guy, so lucky for us to get some time with him today. Definitely check out that book, and remember, stay sane.